Hey guys, what's up? Stock Retail coming back to you. Funny, right as I was looking at my screen here, noticing it's 3:33 p.m. my time. I promise you that's not on purpose, but kind of funny. Um, all right, so this is actually the second video of the day. I hadn't planned on talking about the 8K today. I had thought I'd probably do that tomorrow because we're going to do some family time here. But I took a look at the document while I was just eating lunch, and kind of realized it's short enough. Why don't I just cover it real quick? A few folks had asked me, and so let's just do this. So I'm just going to dive right in. If you missed it, there's another video already today that talks about the whole week that we just had behind us. A lot of big moves this week, things like Nvidia dropping 10% in a day, AMC running hard. Kind of explained all the pieces of the week and why it fits the thesis. So if you want to do twice in one day with me, you can go back and just see that from earlier today as well. All right, let's actually just go through the document. And usually I would like screenshot and make bullets and whatever, but for the sake of getting to my kind of family time we're doing here, I'm just going to read through it kind of almost live with you here. So a couple things that caught my eye as I read it, and this is literally, so I've screenshot the whole document. I mean, this is how short it is. It's just, remember that Adam had said we were gathering up this 250 million, and I had said, like right after that announcement, I thought that had to do with liquidity covenants. So here we are, and you're going to see some things about liquidity covenants in this. So I think perhaps I got some of that right. That was all, into March kind of. All right, so AMC has this senior secured revolving credit facility. So a couple things you want to just pick apart in terms of the words you're seeing. So secured means it's kind of backed up. This is a loan that has something behind it. And then a revolving credit facility. So that is just, it can sort of flex up and down how much you owe within that. Just think if you had like a line of credit on your house, that can be considered a revolving credit facility. There are other kind of instruments sort of like that. So we had this access to this 225 million bucks basically. It doesn't mean they were always using all 225. You could kind of flex this up and down. And you can see matures, so it's basically ending here in, gosh, what's today? Today's the 20th as I filmed this. So it was ending here in a few days. It was maturing, and they would have needed to decide what they were doing about that. So the company does not intend to renew the facility. You can kind of see that. So they're saying, all right, we're done with this particular sort of loan or credit facility we had. The company, which is AMC, has entered into a new letter of credit facility. So I can tell you a little bit about letters of credit. So you can see here too, letters of credit. I've told you before that I worked at a Dow Jones company for 21 years. We had contract manufacturing. So you've got, like, let's say you're shipping product from Asia or South America or whatever around the world. And so for our manufacturers, they could ship right away and effectively like apply for their, getting paid. And these letters of credit facilitate kind of global supply chains. It's a normal thing. And allow the manufacturer to kind of get access to money right away, and then allow you to kind of pay it off later. And so it's sort of like in a way, a credit card that pays out to somebody who's giving you some service or product, and then you have to pay back to that later. I'm not fully explaining that, but that's basically what letters of credit are. It's just kind of a standard thing used in business for many, many decades now. And so this is basically letting AMC, again, it's another kind of credit facility that's allowing them to, like, let's say they take in shipments of popcorn or shipments of the buckets, or there's times they just want to pay bills or things like that. So this is, and you can even just see in the ordinary course of business, right? So it's just a very normal thing. You're going to see them create this new letters of credit facility. And it's just another type of financing that's a little bit flexible. It doesn't mean you always owe. You don't just take out all the cash and then owe it all. And in that way, let's say there's, again, 225 million or something, but they've only used 10 million. Well, now, in terms of interest accruing and things like that, it's often only on what you owe. And I'm sure there's other fees and things related. So all it's saying is they're closing the one and opening the other. But let me tell you kind of why that starts to matter. So the senior secured revolving credit facility, that's the one they're closing down, included a financial covenant. That's what I told you about, these liquidity covenants. So that was the video I was telling you what was going on there. In certain circumstances, so that required in certain circumstances compliance with a certain secured leverage ratio. All right, so remember I said secured means it's kind of backed up by something. So effectively, the bank they had this with had rules around, all right, AMC, you've got to keep your leverage ratio. In fact, on the last video, I talked about leverage just earlier today. So effectively, the kind of debt to cash, probably, it was some sort of math there. They had to keep a certain amount of, think about how Adam has said a few times, cash is king and some other stuff like that. So he's been managing, and I say he, but it's his whole executive team and probably his entire finance department has managed this carefully. And so they've managed this leverage ratio, which is why then sometimes from time to time they had to make sure they had a certain amount of cash. So you can see the requisite revolving lenders, sorry, a little tongue-tied, guys, previously agreed to suspend testing of the blah, blah, blah. Remember I said yearly around the end of March? So yearly we were kind of testing these financial covenants. And each time we kind of passed, it sort of got suspended until the next year. Subject to certain conditions. So including, you can see like this wouldn't have been too hard. Adam and team had to keep at least $100 million around at all time. Like, we finished Q4 with closer to $1 billion. I think we were, around 800 million in cash. So 100 million, I don't think has been too hard to be at. But the point is, there's these covenants, these restrictions, promises. A covenant is like a contract or, a promise you've entered into. And if you break it, then there can be sort of penalties and restrictions and things that happen. And that's what I told you about in the sort of late March video. And so you can see, as of April 19th, so yesterday, in anticipation of the maturity, so it was going to come due, AMC voluntarily terminated the commitments. So now we're out of that covenant. And hold that thought, because that's kind of starting to be a good thing. Under the senior secured revolving credit facility. So that's the old one, in full, and paid off any remaining obligations. So remember I said, like, you can flex up and down. Let's say they had used it to manage their cash, pay some bills, whatever. There's some amount in there. You got to close the account. So they had to pay it all off. Whatever amount had been used, they're paying it off and closing it out. Immediately from and after the payoff, that covenant and any related covenant suspension conditions are no longer in effect. In other words, we're wiping everything out. We don't even have this particular credit facility anymore. We've closed it out. So all the covenants are gone too, is what they're really just saying. They've erased this all from their business model, let's call it that. And you can see that's even been around since April 30, 2013, as amended from time to time. So the terms, it's telling us the terms have been around since then, and they were allowed to amend this from time to time. So a lot of legalese. If I just simplify it, they had a credit facility, they're closing down. That's the one that had liquidity covenants on it. And guess what? Remember, some of those covenants have to do with, can we ever pay a dividend? Can we ever have a stock buyback? So now I'm finally to more of the fun part of talking about that. But note, the termination of the senior secured revolving credit facility. So there's that credit facility. Just think in a way like credit cards. It's not quite the same, but just for you and me, let's think about it like that. Does not otherwise affect the senior secured term loan. That's the words you want to focus on here. Term loan facility under the credit agreement. All right, so let's unpack that. There is, remember how I keep saying, I believe we're going to refinance the 2026 debt. We're going to move that out. That matters for a couple reasons. One is, of course, the shorts are trying to say you've got this big chunk of debt that all is coming to kind of go through the pipes in 2026, and it's like too much all at once, and you won't be able to pay it off on time. That's the shorts. That's a distortion thing. I don't believe any of that. I'm just telling you what they say. And I have said, don't worry about it. We're going to push out those maturity dates. We're going to refinance. Adam has said that himself. He's made clear he's working on maturity dates. And what I hear when he says that is that 2026 debt that's due, maybe even some 2025. He's going to move it out to be having to be paid off at a later date. So he's going to buy time effectively. He's going to give us time to build up enough cash to pay that off. I don't have concerns about that. That's also why, guys, I talk so much about us being profitable. When we're starting to be more profitable, now we are going to bring in cash from the business instead of bringing in cash from the sale of stock. And we'll be paying off our debt with the business profits over time. And if we have enough time to do that, then dilution is done. And at some point, dilution will be done. I'd like to think maybe it even already is, but I just can't promise that. And I trust the team if they decide we need more. But in general, we're going to start paying off debt with profits instead of with shares. And that's going to be just a really, really nice turn of events. Okay, so that's one piece of this. But just what you need to see here is we still have these liquidity covenants. That's what it's saying. does not otherwise affect the senior secured term loan facility. So I believe I asked the team about this once. John Merriweather emailed me back, and I shared that with you guys. I can't remember now if it was on Twitter or here on YouTube or both. Effectively, he couldn't, I think, give me as clear of an answer as I was looking for. I was specifically asking to see the covenants and see exactly what debt they're on. But I have, I don't know, from the things that he was able to answer me, because he's got to respect, they're a public company and he has to be careful the way he shares things with us. From what he was able to tell me and some of you guys and other emails I've seen from some apes, and then from just my understanding of our debt, this large chunk that's due in 2026, you can go find, just look at this wording too, senior secured term loan. You can find that, I think it's about 1.9 billion in 2026. That's not all of our debt in 2026. I've shown you that. You can find a video kind of end of October, beginning of November last year, where I showed you all of our debt by year. But the point is, this senior secured term loan is, I think, about 1.9 billion, and it's in 2026. And I do believe that has the liquidity covenants on it as well. And what all I mean by that is covenants around, can we have dividends? Can we do stock buybacks? How much cash do we have to have on hand, and some things like that. So, in summary, kind of already done talking about this here. We have closed an old credit facility that had some restrictions on it. Let's call them restrictions. We've opened a new one without the restrictions, and it's a little bit different, whereas before it was a revolving credit facility. Now it's these letters of credit. It's just another way to have access to sort of manage your business and pay bills. That part's kind of almost plain vanilla, nothing too exciting. But the exciting part is then we have closed out this account that had some restrictions on it. And now the only restrictions, I believe, I can't promise you that, are on this senior secured term loan. That's the 1.9 billion in 2026. And what have we heard from Adam? He's going to move maturity dates. Well, that's a refinance. I've talked to you about refinance. I believe that's going to move out. And perhaps, let's just say that word perhaps, because I'm not involved in any of these conversations, so I'm very careful not to make promises that I can't personally make happen. Perhaps when he refinances that into new debt, much like this was, he moves it out in dates, but he also maybe gives the team more flexibility. Now, I just want to be really careful. One more thought before I close out here on dividends, on stock buybacks. I know apes are pretty noisy about it, and honestly, I think it's because some believe it can help push the squeeze. If you've shorted a lot of shares and now you've got to cover basically a dividend on those, especially if there's any naked shorts, you're going to owe a lot of money. And that's why people believe it's squeezy. It effectively costs the shorts to help process that dividend. We hit them in the wallet, pretty much. That's what the thesis would be on that. And on a stock buyback, it could just effectively help current shareholders, right? Because now it's like the opposite of dilution. We undilute. And so that's why I kind of like both of those. But I just want to be really careful that, I see people kind of yelling for it and stuff. And I'm just in a position where I trust Adam. I've said I trust Kansas. I trust the executive team. When the time is right for dividends and share buybacks, he'll know and he'll do it. The guy wants to beat the shorts every bit as much and maybe more than us. He's been on a very hard journey for 4 years. I've said before, he was dealing with them in 2020 before, most apes came along in 2021 or later. Just think about, when did you come along? He was fighting this battle even before, certainly before I came, probably before many of you came. And I believe he's shown enough to show he's a very competitive man. And I mean that in all the best ways. We should be competitive. We should be trying to win. And so he will know when dividends are helping us win. He will know when stock buybacks are helping us win. His team will know that. I believe that. And so you're never going to find me yelling for that and pushing him or anything like that. But I am just sort of objectively telling you, okay, why do people talk about that? Why is that such a big topic? All right, so that's it on the most recent 8K filing, and you can find that on the AMC website. You can find that on the SEC website. I've screenshotted it here for you. Check out the other video I did earlier today, and you know that I believe we will win. Let's go.